Okay, and let's put it in present mode. Okay, cool. So welcome to another Ink Metal 5773 workshop for the Girls Who Code Hackathon that we're hosting this week. Thank you all for coming. I'm Anuj. I'm a code captain and outreach captain at Ink Metal. And I've been helping with creating curriculum for workshops and creating publicizing connections for the Girls Who Code Hackathon, which you're all participating in, which is actually open to everyone. We're just partnering with them. Okay, so the reason why you are all here is to learn a bit more about app development. So we're going to get into the details of that and coding that everything quite shortly. So I just want to sort of as an icebreaker almost, does anyone have any experience with maybe any coding or making any apps, or maybe if you use a lot of apps too, that would work? You can just let me know in chat, or if you want to unmute, that's fine too. Okay, looks like a few people do have some experience coding. It's fine if you don't. And I'm sure all of you have used apps. Yeah, okay, desktop or Android apps. Yeah, definitely. So that will all come in handy. As today, we're going to be diving into app development. So there are a lot of what you call our, yeah, I remember that, Sharifa. Yeah, thanks for coming. So any coding basics or any logic that you know of will come in handy for today. So the specific coding language we're going to be using when we're making apps is called Flutter. So Flutter is actually developed by Google. So essentially, it's developed by Google to serve as a programming language to make apps for Android and iOS. So the same code can actually be used to generate iOS and Android apps. Normally, you'd have to use two different languages and learn all of them, but Flutter makes things really easy and simple and to understand. So you can actually make Android apps, iOS apps, desktop apps, or web apps. So there's a lot of things you can do with Flutter. So Flutter is actually just like the app development that Google made is referred to as Flutter, but Flutter is actually coded in this language called Dart. So it's really similar to JavaScript, Java, Python, any programming language you might have heard of in the past. It's very similar to that. Someone asked, don't you need a Mac to make iOS apps? So you only need a Mac to make iOS apps if you're using Xcode or what's called, or the language called Swift. That's only for Mac computers. But the beauty of Flutter is it can be run on any laptop. It can even be run online, because that's what we're going to do today. All the emulators, simulators, like virtual devices that you're going to see your app run on, they can also be on Mac OS, your Windows laptop, Linux, if anyone uses that, also web if you want to. Okay. Anyone have any questions for what Flutter is exactly? We'll dive deeper into it soon. All right, cool. Then we will continue. So normally, if you want to do more like Flutter development and actually make apps more frequently, I guess, you would want to download Flutter onto your laptop and set it up with different softwares to code, download all that stuff. And that's a really difficult progress at first. Once you get it set up, it's all nice and smooth. Just for some details there, you actually use a software called Android Studio. That's where you would code Flutter, and you can run it on emulators or on your physical device to see how your app functions on your laptop. But since we don't want you to download anything, it's just too much of a hassle. We're going to use a version of Flutter which can be run online called flutlab.io. And I'll actually put this link in chat. So this is sort of what it looks like. We'll get more into it later, but I'm going to send this to everyone. Go to that website and go ahead and make an account. You can use whichever email you want. Just have that account ready if you want to follow along, which I highly recommend you do. And if you do choose to make an app for the hackathon itself, I'd recommend downloading Flutter because having it online provides like limited functionality, though it would work. But for now, just everyone make an account on FlipLab. And while you guys are doing that, let's get into some Flutter background information. So today we're going to be working on a project that is provided by Google itself. So I'll be explaining all the parts of it, and we'll get into what that project exactly is. But before we start that project, we really need to understand the most important aspects of Flutter. So, right, okay. So the main thing in Flutter that you have to understand is this idea and concepts of widgets. So a widget is essentially an element in an app. So an image in an app is a widget. A camera viewer, like a camera preview, like you see when you open your camera app, that's a widget. A button, like this plus button over here, that's a widget. A text box over here, widget. Every element in the app itself is a widget when you're coding with Flutter. Now, widgets can include other widgets. So for example, I could have a huge table and that has a bunch of buttons in them, and those buttons have text in them. Like you can go on and on and on. And what you do is you create these widget trees. So they're like organized widgets, and they each have different levels or lower widgets in them. So for example, in this app, you don't have to worry about what all this means, but the first widget is a scaffold widget. That's sort of like the base plate for your app. Think of like a white screen. That's where your app will go. It's like your canvas. Then you have a center widget. That's to make sure that everything is centered. You can see everything, all the text here is centered except for this button. And that's because it's actually not in the center widget. The center property is not applied to it because it's not in the widget. It's actually outside, if you can see that. But continuing on with the center widget, inside you see there's a column widget, and inside there's a text widget and another text widget. So this is a column, right? Two rows on top of each other, rows of one. And here you have text and text again. So you have text widgets inside this column widget, inside this center widget, because it's all centered, inside a scaffold widget. So as you make more and more complex apps, these widget trees get very complicated. So, well, really, the way Flutter is designed is to make it seem a bit less complicated. So once you get used to seeing these widget trees, it'll all make sense to you. And we'll be doing a lot of that today. Over here is an app bar. That's another widget that's outside the center, inside the scaffold. That's actually this top thing. It's like sort of the menu bar at the top, like a heading area. That has a text widget in it here. Then we have a floating action button. That's just a normal button with some like nice shadowing. That's also in this, that's actually in the scaffold widget, not in the center. And you can see it here, that plus sign. And inside that is an icon widget because you want that image. There's a ton of widgets and they all have different uses. We're not going to get through every single one of them today because that would be a very long tutorial. But I will be giving you resources towards the end of the session where you can learn more about different widgets and widgets you want to include in your project when you're building your app. That is if you choose to. Any questions about widgets? Okay, cool. If anything comes up, just let me know in chat or if you want to unmute. All right, then let's move on. So let's get into what our first project will be. So we're going to be using Flutter's open source documentation and following their first project guide. And that's essentially a startup name generator. So what it does is it creates a bunch of different names for, say, like a company or startup you want to make. These might seem a bit wacky, but they're actually all random and they're actually never ending. So what you can do is scroll up and down. You can like one, you can dislike one by just unliking it. And there's also a menu bar. So this does not look very complex at first, but you'll see that the widgets that you're gonna have to use and just like the general template code will be a bit hard to understand at first, but hopefully you will gain some clarity on that later. So this is what we're gonna be doing today. So in this project, you're gonna learn a few things about Flutter. So one, you're gonna learn how widgets really work and interact with each other. Two, how to style your Flutter app to make it look nice. You can see there are some animation, some coloring, text, font, how to implement scrolling, navigation, and touch functionality, which are crucial parts of any app, and much, much more. So with that, also for the people who just joined, go ahead and make an account at flutlab.io. That's where we're going to be coding today. It's online, free. Only thing you have to do is make an account. So yeah, with that, let's move on to the IDE or FlutLab. And we're going to start with creating our first project. Close that. Okay, so also, if you'd like to follow along with the lessons that we're actually going to be doing, here is part 1, and here is part 2 in chat. I won't be screen sharing that portion though. Okay. So if you're still getting FlutLab set up, no rush. We'll just get started with making the project first. Okay, and this is fine size. Okay, cool. So we're at FlutLab, so let's just make a new project. So add project. Ooh, okay, I'm just gonna delete these two. These two don't really have anything in them. Okay, add project. So choose code base. This is just like what you want your template to be. I think I can choose no template because that's kind of, actually we'll just choose the first one, stateless hello world, doesn't really matter. Project name, let's call this startup name generator. Doesn't matter what you call this either. Name it whatever you want. Package name is sort of a formality when you're writing your code. It's sort of like your signature on your app in each code file. So you don't really have to include it, but I'll just show you an example. So maybe com.ink and metal.anuj, something like that. It doesn't really matter. You can leave this blank. Okay, and I think we should probably check it null safe, but let me just check that. Okay, so we're gonna actually check it as null safe. You don't really have to understand what that means right now. It's just a cleaner way of writing your code. Okay, so created a project and let's hop into it. Okay, so this is what a Flutter project looks like. So you have a bunch of these folders and a bunch of random files, but the only one that you're really going to care about are 2 files. One is main.dart. This is where most of your code for writing the actual app will go. The second one is pubspec.yaml. That might be a weird name at first, but essentially, this is where you can tell your program what settings you want it to have. Maybe if you want to use a package or code that someone else wrote in your app, this is where you'd say that. Maybe if you want to use a different font, or maybe if you want to try to use a camera in your app, all that would go here. So this is a very important file, and do not mess with it unless you absolutely must. Okay, so we have main.dart, and that's located. Can you repeat how to create a new project? Sure. So go to flutlab.io, then click on create project up top. This is after you make your account. For code base, just choose the first one, stateless hello world. Project name, you can name it whatever you want. First project is fine, startup name generator is fine. And then for package, you can leave this blank. and then check mark this and then click create. So just these three things. Okay, I think we're good there. So back to the Flutter project. Yeah, no problem. So in main.dart, that's located in the lib folder, located in the master folder for your app. So basically, this is where your Dart code will go. Remember, Dart is a language that Flutter is programmed in. So you can see there's a bunch of code already over here. You can see some things you might recognize, like for example, this is a widget. This is actually a class. This is a function to build a widget. You don't need to understand all that terminology right now, but let's just see what happens when we run this. Let's see, I believe web emulator. Right. Okay, so this might take a while, but in the meantime, does anyone have any questions? Okay, perfect. So the emulator is something you use to show what your app looks like on that. So it's sort of like your test phone almost. So since you are writing your own app, you do want to see what it looks like. So yeah, okay, that's done. Build is done. So then you click on web emulator and there we go. We have a nice little phone. Nothing too important happened before you actually entered Arnabi, so you're fine. Okay, so here, essentially I clicked run web, then you click on this little phone icon and you get something that looks like this. It's a little phone. How cool. I don't know which phone this is, but definitely looks like one I don't want to have. I think you can change the settings, but I don't really want to mess with that right now. So here is our phone, and this is where our app will be previewed. You can move it around, you can refresh it. This is when you make an edit to the code, like maybe here I say Flutter or Node.js homepage instead of Flutter homepage. I believe. Okay, whatever. So if I make a little edit to the title over here, then all I have to do is click refresh. Takes a second or two, and okay, more than a second, but it will show the title at the top. That's refreshed. So generally, oh, that's weird. Perhaps we'll have to do a new build, but let's just add more exclamation marks. I haven't used the site too much, so it might be a bit buggy. Yeah, okay. So in this case, we'll actually have to rebuild it. And then that will actually show the update. When you're running it after you downloaded Flutter and set it up and everything, you do have that refresh capability. I guess it's just not working here. Okay, cool. Then let us continue. This title is null. Is that an error you're getting, Anish? Huh. Okay. Did you make it with null safety, or did you like check that box? Actually, I don't think it should be a problem. In the case that it is a problem, then you can just make a new project later on. Okay. So let's continue. Yeah, so now it has been updated. You just have to rebuild it. So it doesn't work as magically as it would if you download it. So let's get started with our project. So there are two parts. We're going to try to get to the second one if we have time. But in the first part, we're going to write a Flutter app that looks natural for iOS, Android, and web. We're gonna go over the basic structure of Flutter app. We're gonna talk about how to use different packages to extend an app's functionality. And we will also implement stateful widget and create a loaded list. That's Lucy. So sort of like a scrolling list, which is harder than it sounds. Okay, so essentially, we're going to implement a simple app that generates proposed names for a startup company. The user can select and unselect names, saving the best ones. The code lazily generates 10 names at a time. As the user scrolls more, names are generated. There is no limit to how far a user can scroll. So essentially, the more you scroll, the more names show up. And they actually generate as you scroll down. Okay, so let's continue. So we have our Flutter environment set up. And now let's get into some coding. So I'm going to actually delete everything. Well, actually, okay, so it will be helpful if you go to the first link I sent you with part 1 and follow along there. I'll actually send everyone the link of the page I am on right now. So that's the code we're going to be looking at and like transferring it to our app. So here is the first part of our app that we're going to be writing. So I just copy and pasted this over. If you want to type it from scratch, you can, but I recommend you just go to the link and copy and paste it from there. After all, if you code for a while, you notice that a lot of coding is just copy and pasting. So, but let's just go over this code real quickly. So this code is really just like the general outline for what you want the app to be. It's not really specific to the app we want to make, but essentially it's showing a title, welcome to Flutter, that'll be at the top. Actually, yeah, this will be at the top. Then it'll show in the center, hello world, similar to this, but just with different text, and they'll pop up soon. So yeah, that's just a very simple app, right? So you'll notice a few things. One, you have this import statement. So import is you're importing this package, and this is actually all like the Dart code. So if you want to make an app and you're using Dart and Flutter, you need to run this line. So it's just like standard. Same thing with this one and this whole class sort of thing. This will just run your large widget called a stateless widget. So this class is actually where all of your code will go in. There's this build function. It's a function and it has these curly braces where code for the function goes in. We return, and then this is where we put all of our widgets and our widget tree in our app. So all of that other stuff, that's going to be in every single app. This material app and what's inside of it, this is what changes when you're actually building an app. So here's material app, that's actually a widget. It has a title, welcome to Flutter. Then a home is scaffold. So scaffold is another widget. These are just different properties of this one widget. Then inside scaffold, notice that scaffold has 2 parentheses. It's just broken into, and more widgets are put in it. So we have app bar. That's another property. Is app bar. That's confusing, but this is another widget. That's the blue thing you see at the top. That's why it's called an app bar. It's a bar in the app. This has a property called title. So notice for properties, you do the property name, colon, and then either like a widget or some text or something to fulfill that property. So here we have text, welcome to Flutter. Don't worry about constant. Then body is another, it's another like property of scaffold widget. And here we're putting a center widget. Inside the center widget, the widget that goes inside, or the child widget as it's called, because remember we talked about how widgets can go inside each other. So when you want that to happen, you actually put child property, colon, and then the next widget. So inside, or the child for the center widget is a text widget saying hello world. That's right here. So that was just a brief overview to what this code looks like. Any questions there? Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. So we'll continue. So the next thing we need to do is actually import a package. And we're importing this package because we actually want to add a font. So go to pubsback.yaml and scroll down to line 25, most likely line 25 for you, where it says Cupertino icons. This is actually referring to like iOS styled images. So what you're going to do is make a space here and type English words colon caret 4.0.0. So this is just telling us what version of the package English words we want. English words is not a font, but it's just a collection of a bunch of random words. Remember, we want to make a bunch of different names for startup companies. So this is where we're going to get all those words from. It's just a collection of a bunch of words. So that's how we're going to randomly generate the names. So this is how you would import the package. So the next thing you do once you edit the settings in your pubsback.yaml file, remember that's like the settings for your project. Then you go to pub commands and click on the button that says pub get. So this will update your project based on the settings that you added in pubsback.yaml. So we added this new package. Now that it's run and finished, we can now use that in our code. Okay, I believe that's it there. So now let's import that package. So here we're actually importing the whole Dart language, all the widgets and all. That's from this import. Next, we're going to import the package that we just put. And that is, right? What? Okay, I was blind for a second. That is English words. Where to get this mobile icon on tap? Oh, are you talking about the phone, Sharifa? This swiping? Okay. Yeah, so for that, we'll actually run our app another time once we made a bit more progress, but you just click on the run button and then click on the phone button and it shows up. But I'll model that the next time we have to run something. Okay, so back to the import statement, right? So we need to import this new package. So you simply do import package English words / English words. All right, so this may seem very redundant, but this is actually the package name. Why is it giving me an error? I see. It believes that this does not exist. Okay, this is run properly. So when you code, you often get like a bunch of these errors. I'm just going to try building it. Don't think there should be an error. Otherwise, that's just very weird. Let's see. If it builds successfully, then we're fine. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for that to load, fun. Okay, load up the app. Nothing should change, but yeah, okay. I don't think there's an issue with this package. I guess that FlutLab is just being a bit weird. Okay, so we imported our package. Cool. So now let's get into a few more changes. So we're gonna actually print a random word or display a random word instead of hello world. So let's make the following revisions to our code. So over here, hit an enter and do final word pair equal to word pair dot random. All right, I'm just gonna click on packages. Let me just make sure that this is here. Maybe run pub.get again. Very odd. Okay. Oh, So I think all I had to do was run pub.get again. Now it's fine. Okay. I don't know why FluttLab did that, but anyways, so one neat thing is, oh, okay, I guess there is no autocomplete. Anyway, so final word pair is equal to word pair dot random. There we go. So for those of you that might know a bit of coding, this is actually a variable, and we're assigning that to a random word. So essentially a variable is like sort of like text that will represent a value. Oh God. Okay. What is this? Oh, world pair. No, it's word pair. Yep. I write a bunch of typos often, so feel free to call me out on that. So this will get us a random word, right? Simple enough. And now we want to display. So instead of this line, let's actually replace constant or take out constant here. That's all very useless. We also don't need constant here. Now in this text, instead of saying hello world, we want to print the word that we just got, here, dot as Pascal case. And there we go. So that is just formatting it so that it looks nice on the app. So if we run this again, actually, maybe a refresh would work. Let's see. No, I refuse to accept that it failed. So what we just did is okay, yeah, I'll have to. So you have to rebuild it by clicking on the run button. And then when it's done, click on web emulator, the phone icon. But essentially right now we're just working on finding a random word. Any questions so far though? Okay, then cool. So that will boot up soon, but we can start making a few more changes. Finally. Okay, now let's run the web emulator. This is why it's not the best to do it online. But if you just want to test certain things, then online's perfectly fine. Okay, cool. So it says top store. Those are just like two random words combined together. If you want to go ahead and make a startup called Top Store, please be my guest. This is just like a fun test app. But now let's get into like formatting it a bit nicer. So right now you can see that we have something called a stateless widget. So a stateless widget, that's sort of like the wrapper for all of our widgets to go into, right? So a stateless widget means nothing in the app itself can change. No edits can be made live. So essentially you have stateless widgets if you want to make your app like efficient, if you don't need any updates to be there, if it's sort of like a static page. But in most scenarios, you actually want to use something called a stateful widget. So essentially a stateful widget, it is a bit more complicated, but that allows you to make changes in real time with your app. So say the user clicks a button and you want an action to happen, you'd have to use a stateful widget for that. Or say in our case, we're sliding or we're like scrolling through our app and we want to see more names for startups. That would be a stateful widget because change is occurring in the app. So let's look into stateful widgets a bit more. So I believe we can actually delete all of this, but what I'll actually do is comment it. So, so for this coding, I prefer, or like, I think it's easy for you to use a laptop computer. Mobile won't really work too well. But in terms of like the app can run on mobile, laptop, computer, anything. Okay, so we don't need this code anymore, but I don't want to delete all of it. So if you actually hold command or command backslash, or actually the easier way is to put a backslash asterisk asterisk backslash. This comments your code out so that it won't run. So just make sure to put 2 pairs of these. If it sort of loses its color, then that means you did it properly. So commenting your code means that it'll be ignored by Flutter. And that's what we want because we're going to write new code. So now I'm on this part of the tutorial. Actually, might be simple if sorry, I'm just moving a few things around here. Okay, there we go. So we are now at this spot. So we need to make a new stateful widget. Now, there is an easy way to do that. Type stful, enter. Oh, what? Does it not have that? Oh, so normally in code editors, if you just type stful, then a stateful widget will be made, but this case doesn't work. So we're actually going to just copy this. Oops. So we're going to copy this code. Very simple. We're just making a stateful widget. Actually, I'll reduce that. Okay. So very simple here, right? So here is, so stateful widgets actually have 2 classes to go with them instead of stateless widgets just having 1. Makes it a bit more complicated, but essentially this will be auto-generated in any editor. This part is where you actually make your widget tree. So this looks very similar to the stateless widget. You have your widget build here, and you're returning, this case it's container. You can return anything. You can return a material app, a scaffold. This is just a widget, remember. So now we have our stateful widget ready to use, and we can make changes to our app in real time. So now let's update the build function in this class over here to look like the following. So what we're going to do is up here, we're going to do final word pair. We already did this code, but we just need to put it back up here. Pair.random, get those random words here. Note that after most lines in Flutter, you have to put a semicolon so that Flutter knows that the line ends there. That's actually really common in other languages. So then instead of returning container, we will return text. So a text widget, pair.as Haskell case. Cool. So this is very simple app now. All you're going to see if you run this is a word on the screen. So it's not worth to run it right now. So let's continue. Now we need to remove word generation code from my app by making the following changes. I see. Okay, so we're going to actually go to this next part over here, and we're going to put this at the top. So make some space. So this is actually a stateless widget, which we're going to use with our stateful widget. So these types of widgets can be used together. But essentially here we just made a few revisions. So now child is actually random words and then 2 parentheses. This is referring to the stateful widget that we just made. So in your stateless widget, you're putting a stateful widget. Remember, widgets can be put into each other. This is simply that spot where you're putting a widget inside another widget. Okay. You don't have to understand that too far. Cool. So now if we run the app, it's gonna look very bare bones. It'll just show a word, very similar to this. Only, okay, yeah, it'll pretty much be exactly like this. The only thing we changed was we added a stateful widget. So stateless widgets are, for example, this where you don't want anything in that widget to change. So it's going to be static, whereas stateful widgets, things can change. Like if you click a button, maybe some new text pops up or the color changes on the app. that's what a stateful widget is used for. What is this? Getter not found main. Ah, my bad. I forgot this line. So that's very important. That sort of like gets your code actually running. It should build. Okay, so while that's building though, let's get into the next part. So this is the last part. So now we're going to create an infinite scrolling list view. So this is a bit lengthy. So in this step, we're going to expand this. So this is the stateful widget we just made to generate and display a list of word pairings. So as a user scrolls, the list displayed in a list view widget grows infinitely. Okay, so we need to implement infinite scrolling list views. So remember, when the user scrolls through the app, we want to like generate new startup names. And we want it to have it be so that they can infinitely scroll it. Like there is no end because we have probably thousands of words from that package to use. Oh, is this done? Okay. I don't know what this is, but the word it generated is boy trace. I don't know. These names are very weird. This may not be a practical app, but it's good it's good to expose you to Flutter. Okay, so let's see what we have to do here. So in random word states, there we go. Okay, so over here, we're going to go to this function. This is our stateful widget, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to make some space above this override and type in a few variables. So final suggestions. You'll see this final word a lot. Simply because it like declares, oh, this is the only value for this variable, cannot be changed. It's just good to use that when you want to. Don't really worry about final though. So final suggestions, we're making a new variable here, is equal to a list word pair. There we go. So this is a list of different words. This notation looks very weird, I'm sure, but as a list is just like, say like a grocery shopping list. It has a bunch of different things in it. In this case, it has a bunch of different randomly generated words. Okay, constant versus final. I don't want to confuse you guys too much by going into that. You don't really have to worry about final or constant. They're truly not that important. Okay, so here we're essentially initializing our list to have a bunch of different words on it so we can show that on our app. Oh, I see. Okay, if you use any other programming languages and you have some like customs that you stick to with coding, feel free to use those if it's applicable. Okay, so we have this first variable. Next, we're going to make another variable called bigger font is equal to const text style. And I'm just actually following what the guide says right now, 18. Okay, so we made two variables, suggestions, which is our list of words, bigger font, which is essentially just like a font size. So text style is actually a widget. It basically models how you want your text to look like. In this case, we want it to have a font size of 18. So that's just represented by a variable. Okay, so next, there is not too much code, but in this step, there are a bunch of comments. So let's get to work on that. So in random word states, so that's this function, we are going to add a new, or class, we're going to add a new function. So this will actually be something where you can like simply type this keyword and it will return like a widget. It will give you back a widget to display. So let's type this out. Widget build suggestions, two parentheses, curly braces, open them up, return list view.builder, adding this const edge insets.all 16. So list view.builder is actually a widget. These are different properties of it. Padding is like the distance from the edges. It's just for formatting. You'll see how it looks soon. Then item builder build context on context int I. Then we're gonna put more curly braces and open that up. So this is where we're gonna actually write the code for showing different words, right? So if I dot is odd, if this integer, if this number I is odd, it's just how we're gonna make decisions, then more curly braces and return divider. So essentially, we're going to add a 1 pixel high divider widget, so some spacing before each row in the list view. We don't want all the names to be right next to each other. So int I is going to be like going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So every other value of I, we're going to put some spacing. So we're going to make it like look a bit nicer that way. Then we're going to go outside the if. Then we're going to write final int index is equal to I, and then this like curly symbol divided by 2. So this will divide I by 2 and return the integer result. So it won't give you a decimal. That's what we want. So for example, 1. And then if I is 1, then this would be 0. If I is 2, this would be 1. I is 3, this would be 1 because it doesn't go in fully. Yeah. So this would calculate the actual number of word pairings in the list view minus the divider widget. So it's just some fancy math to calculate how many words we need to display. So I believe that is it. No. Next is another if statement. So if the index is greater than or equal to suggestions.length, that's how long the suggestions list of words is, then what we're going to do is, so I'm following now this portion. So if you want to just copy and paste it, here is the page I'm on right now. Here. So if index is greater than or equal to suggestions.length, then we will generate 10 more suggestions for words, because that means we've reached the bottom, and then add them to the suggestions list. So that way we have like infinite scrolling and infinite names. So we'll do suggestions add all, generate word pairs, dot take. Oops. Sorry, back here. Dot take 10. So this is essentially saying we're essentially just generating 10 more names. I'm going to actually get rid of this. And then we need a semicolon. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do, we need a semicolon here too. So any red squiggly marks usually indicate an error. I see. Okay. Return build row suggestions index. Okay, cool. So build row. Have we not defined that yet? Oh, we're gonna so it's fine if there's a red squiggly under build row. We're gonna write the code for that later. But now that's just like adding on to the list, right? When we're scrolling. So let's create this build row function. So we'll put it at the top, on top of this widget. So we'll call it widget build row or pair. So that's the argument it's going to take in and manipulate. So we're going to return a list tile. Semicolon, open that up. Then properties, this is another widget. So text pair.as Pascal case. And then style will be bigger font. So this will make the font size 18. So essentially what build row is going to do is it will display each new pair in a list tile, which allows you to make rows a bit more attractive if you want to add more styling. So now let's update the build method over here. So what do we need to add? Okay. So here we're going to, we can actually comment these lines out. So you can put these backslashes, you have to put 2 behind them to disable the code there because we don't want those. Instead, we're going to return scaffold. That's sort of like a wrapper widget, very similar to material app. Put a semicolon there. Then scaffold properties app bar will be an app bar widget. We need another. No, we don't. Then in this app bar, the title will be startup name generator, and you need to add a comma here. Then body. The main body for this widget will be build suggestions. So that's the function we wrote previously over here. This will create that row or a column of names. And then the last thing we need to do before we're pretty much done with this app is update the build method for my app, changing the title, removing the app bar, and changing the home property to a random words widget. So let's go all the way to my app at the very top. Here, we need to change what we're returning. So we can actually delete, let's see, we can delete, where is this from? I see. So let's delete all of that. So we're gonna only do, we can actually delete this too. So we're gonna return a material. And the title of it will be startup name generator and home. What are we going to see when we open that first is random words, and that's what we just coded. So now, if we run this code, we should get is an app which looks something like this. Okay. So this will take a while. So right now, once you do run it, the app is not too interactive. You can't interact with it as much as you might want to. Right now, you can just sort of see it, but the main logic is there. So we don't have enough time to complete part 2, but I can give you the link for it, which, build failed. Forgot a semicolon. Let's just run that again. So yeah, we won't be able to go to part 2 where you're going to learn more about styling and all. If you want me to copy and paste all the code in the chat, here it is. It will be, paste. Okay, apparently I can't send this much. So let me just make it here. I'm just making a file to send you guys so that you can read it later. Okay. Okay, there we go. I sent you the file as something that can be opened in Word. So, oh, oh yeah, you can definitely leave. If you have to leave, then you can. The recording will be sent to everyone, and so will the slides, I believe. So if you have to leave right now, that's fine. But we just have a few more minutes. Um, yeah. So okay, here's our app. Looking pretty nice, right? Oh, we can scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and wow, these names suck and they just never keep ending. So there we go. You have your first app. So very simple. You might want to add some more functionality. So I'm going to put the link to part 2 for this tutorial. Very easy to follow, and I recommend everyone to go over that, where you're going to learn more about like touch interactions and styling. But we have the main logic in place here. Yeah, just 2 more minutes left. So with that, we're pretty much done with the code itself. So go. So now that you might have some good grasp or exposure at least to Flutter, you can use your new skills to make interactive apps for our hackathon. So for further resources, you can use the flutter.dev/doc site. So it has documentation, which basically tells you like how to use widgets. It's really, really, really useful. I really recommend you look at it. Maybe if you want to make an app with a camera, that can help you out. So please you look at it. If you want to like look at YouTube tutorials and all, I've attached some playlists here. And if you just want to contact me, here is my email as well as our team's email. So these resources will be sent to everyone in the email. And just again, so these are sponsors for this hackathon. So you will be getting prizes from most of them if you do win at over $100. So reminder to start your project soon as the challenge comes out, and happy hacking. I hope you enjoyed this workshop. Thank you all for coming. We are done, by the way.